by the time you've seen this, you should have gotten through the midterm, and hooray for that. We're halfway through the semester, which is a short one. Keep that in mind. Don't let deadlines slide. The notes about the midterm will be posted both individually. You'll get some feedback, and also collectively I'll be posting my analysis of the questions. You'll find that in the weekly update, or weekend update, pardon me. The other thing is note in the readings that the second half matching will be appearing in the readings for week 7. Make sure that you keep up on those. They are 25% of the exam grade, and don't forget that anything on the midterm is fair game, so don't rip up those study notes or delete them, or wherever study notes go these days. So with that, we're coming to a couple of topics, theme topics more than chronological topics, but the issue of manufacturing is our first. New Hampshire, thanks to the depth at which New Hampshire spent a lot of years, didn't make for nice soil. That was aggravated by Mr. Glacier. And so soil for farming, pretty spotty. Anybody who can grow anything in New Hampshire is a wizard as far as I'm concerned. One of the things, though, that Mr. Glacier left was water. Remember, Mr. Glacier basically went from north to south, and if you take a look at a map, you'll see rivers tend to flow north to south. That's going to come into play not only this week, but next week as well. So Mr. Glacier continues to exert his influence. So you needed to do something, and you can only cut so many trees. Masting started to fade, but people got the idea, hey, we can make stuff. What a concept. So what you saw, the first real manufacturing in New Hampshire was down in Londonderry, down in the real southern part of the state. I won't pull the map out, where immigrants from Ireland grew flax and made linen, had really good reputation. Other home industries started to appear, and one of the real popular ones was shoemaking, where shoes would be cut at some central location. All the parts, they'd be given to people, and they'd sew them, at their home and turn them in for valuable prizes. I assume money. Anyway, but gradually the idea came, hey, we got all this water running down through the state. We can harness that power. And the first place we really saw that was over in Harrisville, over in this part of the state where Abel Twitchell set up one of the first mills dealing with cotton. Big thing to watch is the Emmuskeg mills in Manchester. You've seen those as you've gone through 193. There's a pile of them. The thing is, that's a fraction of what was there in the Emmuskeg Mills heyday. At their peak of production in 1912, the Amoskeag Mills could produce 88,000 yards of cloth in an hour. Basically, that's 50 miles, enough to stretch from the Amoskeag Mills to Tilton. Why you'd do that, I don't know, but it's a great example. Anyway, the Amoskeag Mills had a lot of customers. One of the ones that surprised me was Levi Strauss. And they were actually one of the largest, or if the largest, textile operation in the world. They had something like 17,000 employees, and they also added a diversity to the population. There were immigrants from Quebec and later from Central Europe and Eastern Europe, also the French. So you had a wide variety of things. That's one of the reasons that other than Tilton House of Pizza, if you want a decent souvlaki, you got to go to Manchester. So anyway, the workforce was diverse. Not only that, women suddenly had economic opportunities that they didn't have before. The Amoskeag Mills failed to modernize. Basically, they got more competition from the South once electrification took hold, and management fell into the hands of some people who weren't very far-sighted. They failed to invest in new equipment, new technology, and ultimately the mills closed in 1934. There was some talk of reopening them, although that was pretty well squashed by the floods of 1936. Looking at mills, you'll see them all around. We take them for granted here. In fact, this is being recorded in the old Arthur S. Brown Manufacturing Company building. The mills, you'll see common characteristics. They're long, they're narrow, lots of windows, that allowed, efficient lighting without a lot of expenditure. Okay, let's see, what else? The railroads, big deal. The railroads, the Boston and Maine, wasn't the first railroad. Actually, the Nashua and Lowell line came into Nashua in 1936 or 1938, depending on your source. The Boston and Maine Railroad actually bought up or leased most of the lines in the state, and New Hampshire was very densely tracked. There were, something like 1,256 miles of track at the peak in New Hampshire. The Boston and Maine exerted a lot of political influence, and they would put lawyers on retainer, newspaper publishers and the like, in order to maintain influence. The another thing that they did was give free passes to members of the legislature. You can just imagine how that would help out a representative from the North Country. That wasn't forgotten. That was the whole idea, right? Okay, so anyway, but there were some positive aspects of the railroad in Boston and Maine. It opened the North Country. One of the things was, what do you do? There's some actually really flat land if you're up around the Haverhill area. like where the Haverhill Fair is, that was open to dairy farming, because they could actually get milk and dairy products down to their markets before it turned into a real nasty version of yogurt. What a concept. The Boston and Maine also affected forestry. The better wood, the better timber. I'm not talking about pulpwood. We'll talk about that next week. But the better timber was able to be gotten out efficiently. Tourism became a thing. Places like Wakefield became tourist destinations. And the grand hotels, people would go and sit on the porch and watch the mountains. That was a big deal, and getting out of the cities at the time, not a bad option. It also impacted the isolation, no longer was a place like Boston, days of travel away. You could be down there in half a day or something like that, even from northern reaches of New Hampshire. The railroads, again, there was a loss of vision. Some things impacted the railroads. Cost of coal and labor went up. The automobile also showed up. I like trains as much as anybody. I have relatives on both sides of my father's family who were conductors on the Boston and Maine, but I'd rather get in my car and go, unless it's a real long haul, just because it's a lot more convenient and can go on my schedule. Anyway, there were those factors led to the breakdown of the of rail service. There was limited service with the Budliners, Buddliners. They were kind of a self-contained passenger car, and we actually had that service in my memory into the middle 60s here in Tilton. There's continued talk of rail service being reestablished for commuters. I would love to see it. That would make a trip into Boston a lot more fun for me, but my dreams aren't going to finance the thing. There's going to have to be a major change of circumstances before we see railroads in their glory. So next week we'll be talking about the early 20th century, and probably the my hero from the for the 20th century is John Wynant, Wyant. He was governor a couple of times, and anyway, kind of an interesting fellow. So with that, we've once again made it in under 15 minutes. Woo! And we'll see you next time, whenever that is.